Okay, I hope you're all feeling fit, raring to go. Okay, first thing, we're going to do a bit of a warm-up, a few squats, a few lunges, a couple of stretches, a bit of mobility for the spine. Then we're going to go into an easy part of the circuit, start warming things up. I've got 2 levels of those, and then we're going to a bigger circuit. We're going to kind of go by feel. We're not going to worry about time or reps. Basically means if I get fatigued, we're probably going to move on to the next exercise. So if you're revisiting this later on and you're doing it at home by yourself, you can obviously do as many reps as you feel capable of doing with good technique before you move on to the next exercise, or you can break them up and do them for time. It's your shout. Okay, stand yourselves up. First thing I'm going to do, hopefully, I'm going to move the box back a fraction, bear with me. Okay, right, so start with, we're into 20 squats. You're going to work at the depth you feel comfortable with, and as you get warmed up, you can start going a little bit deeper. We're going to be thinking about arms for counterbalance, pushing our knees out. We're going to add a tiny little pause at the bottom position. As we come up, gently squeeze the glutes, but work on gently pushing the knees outwards and keeping your lower back nice and flat. And what you can do, make sure you keep the weight in your heels. If you're in barefoot, it's going to be a little bit harder. So adapt your depth of your squat to suit your ankle flexibility. But you can also turn your toes out a few degrees. That will help you get a slightly better position to get a bit more depth. But only go as low as you can keep your lower back nice and flat. Okay, 5 more to do us. Then we're going to go into lunges. When we go into lunge, we're going to concentrate on keeping a nice tall spine. Last one. Okay, lunge, we're going to do side arm. I'm going to use a mat. If you've got a nice comfy floor, you're going to work on stepping back, touch the knee on the ground before you drive up. So lower and drive up. Make sure that front foot is flat on the ground and your knee over the middle of your foot. You don't want to let your heel start lifting off the floor. Keep the spine nice and tall. Be aware that your abdominals are doing something just to help protect your lower back from arching. Again, only go back as far as you feel comfortable. If you look at the bottom position, I've got approximately 90 degrees in the front leg, the hips, and the back leg. Another half a dozen. And then we're going to go into a couple of stretches for the hips and also for the lower back. Last 2. Then we can stay down there. In this position, I'm just going to move slightly. I'm going to go into a hip flexor stretch. So squeeze the glutes on the back leg, relax them, and tilt forward to do a stretch on the upper portion of the thigh. Make sure your lower back is not rotating. What you can try to do is tuck under slightly to focus that stretch. Squeeze the glutes again. Hold for a count of 3, 2, 1, relax. Try and go further forward to the next tissue barrier. If you want, you can stabilize yourself on your thigh and then hang out for a few seconds before we squeeze the glutes again. I'm using my fingers to make sure the glutes are contracting, then relax them and go a bit further forward. So you should be looking at the upper front thigh. From there, let's add to it. Don't let your back arch. So I'm not going to lean back, I'm just going to reach up, keeping a nice straight spine. I'm going to slightly bend away from the side I'm stretching. Then I'm going to rotate my ribcage around a few degrees, looking under my armpit towards the side I'm stretching. We're just trying to work on the fibers higher up to attach the spine. Nice deep breath as you exhale. Try and reach a bit, drop a bit, and bend a bit more. But notice I'm not trying to keep upright here because I do my lower back will arch and I don't want that. Use the front leg to push you out of position. Then we're going to change sides. So from the first point of stretch, we're not looking for a big stretch, just a subtle awareness of the stretch in this region. And then we'll squeeze the glutes again for 3, 2, 1, relax. Go to the next tissue barrier. Again, the stretch is still that upper thigh. Hang out for a couple of seconds. Make sure the back is still flat. Squeeze the glutes again. 3, 2, when you relax. Go further forward. Try and get a little bit deeper in that stretch. Then we're going to reach. We're going to side bend away from the side we're stretching. We're going to rotate. I'm using this arm here to stabilize and rotate me round. So I'm looking under my armpit. As we exhale, we're going to try and drop a bit further in the stretch. It's a nice breath in as I exhale. Drop a bit further. Side bend a bit more. Rotate a little bit more. A couple of breaths relaxing into this. Slowly come out. Again, use that front leg to drive you back. Keep these muscles relaxed. From there, we're going to go into a stretch through the whole spine. So we're going to do a child pose. You want to be able to drop your head to the floor. And we're going to start in our arms overhead when I'm in the child pose position. So start dropping down. Bring the head to the floor. And then walk your fingers forward. Stay in that position. We're going to be walking our hands to one side to side bend the spine. So I'm going to walk to my right. Just walking my fingertips around until I feel a stretch in my left lower back. Keep it on the side of the rib cage. There's definitely a focus on the left side of the stretch as I walk my hands right. Nice slow breaths and try and release the tension you feel. If it releases, you can walk a few more degrees round to the right. Some of you might feel that under the armpit, the lats. That's okay. Walk back to the middle. Now I'm going to go to the left. Go to the first tissue barrier. So first stretch for me is under my arms, my lats. A little bit lower back. Going to hang out and breathe here. Let the head drop to the floor. As the tension releases, walk a little bit further to the left to stretch the right side. As it releases, walk a little bit further if you can. Try the ribcage drop down. And then slowly walk yourself back out. From there, we're going to do two movements, which are going to be large movements from the hips. We're going to stretch the front of the thigh with rotation, and we're going to stretch the back with rotation. So the first one is going to be an iron cross. We're going to lay on our back, our arms in crucifix position. We're going to be reaching the foot across, so we bring one leg up, we reach across the side, try and keep the opposite shoulder on the ground as you reach the floor. So as I reach my right leg up, my right leg sideways, I'm trying to keep as I reach my right leg to the left, I'm keeping my right shoulder down, come back, again, so left leg comes up, left leg goes right towards my right hand. As you get into this and you get a bit more range of motion, try and bring your foot up towards your hand. So if you can touch your hand, rather than bringing your hand to your foot, bring that hand bring the foot all the way up, the crucifix position. You can always hold there for a second, take a nice breath, and relax into that stretch. So we're stretching the side of the glutes and lower back. Let's do one more on the side, and a pause and a breath there. So come across, I grab my foot. If you can't reach the foot, you can hold the leg. Nice breath in. As I exhale, relax into the stretch. Bring the leg round. We'll do the opposite. The opposite's going to be face down. Again, we're being crucifix. I'm going to rotate the head towards the opposite side of the body, so I'm not cranking on my neck. So I'm going to look to my left as I pick up my left leg and take my foot to my right. It's a bit hard to keep your chest on the floor here, or shoulders. We're just going to reach across. So don't worry too much if the shoulder lifts up. But try and feel your glutes engaging as you lift your leg. That's going to help you stretch the front of the thigh through the abdomen. So go nice and smooth. And as you get into it, try and reach your foot a bit higher towards your hand. Add a little pause at each position. We count of 1, 2, last 2 reps. Last one, come across. Hold and relax. You should not have felt your lower back. You should be aware of your glutes and stretching the front of the thighs dynamically. Okay, from there, first circuit, we're going to go nice and simple. We're going to do a little crunch. We're going to do a bridge. We'll do a side couple of spinal movements. So first one's going to be a floor bridge. We're keeping this nice and simple, this one. So it's a 2-leg floor bridge, but make sure you can touch your feet with your fingers. Lift your toes off the floor and try and lift up in a smooth movement. Hands relaxed, palms face up. We're not trying to roll through the spine, we're trying to lift the spine up as one solid unit. So we're not bending or flexing, we simply drive through our heels until we lift up, feel our glutes are doing the work. Let's do 4 more. To help you cue not bending the spine, think bottom leads on the way down, rib cage leads on the way up, and that will just stop you doing more of a Pilates roll-up movement, which we're not after. Last 2 reps. So I'm thinking ribs on the way up, I'm thinking glutes on the way down. From there, we're going to go into a basic crunch. We're just going to be practicing our ribs coming to our pelvis, and we're only going to gently flex the spine. So fingers at temples, it'll make it easier, reach for your knees, little breath in, and gently flex. You're not looking to go in too high. Once the ribs come to the pelvis, control back down. You should be working just as hard on the way down to control the movement, keeping your back nice and flat. We're not letting our back arch as we hit the ground. We're keeping our core engaged. We're keeping our back nice and flat on the floor. And we're only lifting as high as we can smoothly lift in one movement. We're not trying to sit all the way up like you might be doing an ab crunch. Last 4. So really focus on what you're feeling, the control that you have. Last repetition. And control down. Then from there, we're going to go into a quad crunch. So we're going to be reaching elbow to knee. We're going to stay on the same side until we've done about 8 repetitions. So start with right angle your shoulder, right angle the hip, neutral spine. I'm going to reach with the arm and leg. I'm then going to bring the elbow towards the knee. If it helps you, bring your fingers to your temples as you crunch. So fingers to temples, touch the elbow to knee. So we're trying to bend the spine. We are flexing and then returning to neutral. If you wish, if you've got the control, you can just reach the arm up again before you come down, fingers to temples, and flex. Last 3. Smooth movement. You should be touching your elbow and knee together in the middle of the body, roughly level with the belly button. Last rep, and we're going to change sides. So, opposite arm and leg. I bring my fingers to temples. That's going to help me be aware of flexing my upper spine, adding some rotation. Don't lift too high to the ceiling. Just get the spine parallel to the ground at the end of the movement at the top before you tuck in the crunch at the bottom. Smooth movement. Last 3. Last 1. Okay. From there, next one we're going to a side plank, so we're going to work more on the obliques. There are 2 options here. Easy option is your knees, harder option is on your feet. I'll show both. If your shoulders struggle, I suggest go on your knees. Position will be knees, elbow lined up. Lift up, push the pelvis gently forward. Lower to the ground before you lift back up. The harder version, it's the same movement, but you're on your feet. Both feet are on top of each other. Drive away from the floor using your shoulder. Like I say, if your shoulders don't like this, then I would stay on the knees where the load is less. This is pretty hard on the shoulders for most people. Let's do 4 more. As I lift up, I gently push the pelvis forward. Last couple. So as I come down, everything gently bends, but I then straighten the body back out as I lift up. So let's do a couple on knees. Let's do the easy version. So we lift up, we come forward, and we just gently lower. I will slightly flex in the hip and as I do that, before I come back down. The harder version, back to the feet. Feet stacked up on top of each other. Lower down, drive away from the floor using that shoulder. You gently bend at the hip and the knee before you then straighten back out the top position. We're not going to spend too long relaxing the bottom. It's just contact the ground, keep tension in the body, lift back up. You should be feeling the muscles on the side nearest the ground. You've got external and internal obliques. Those muscles are working. Last 2 reps. Okay, lower down. Okay, level 1 done. Next one, level 2. Things are just a little bit harder. So we're going to go into a crunch. We're going to go into another bridge, and we're going to go into another rotation pattern in a side plank. So what I'd like to do, you're going to keep your thighs pointing parallel to the ground. Now, depending on how flexible you are. If you're very flexible, you can straighten your legs out completely. If you're not very flexible, you'll need to bend your knees. We're going to simply crunch up, hold, and return. And simply repeat. Like I said, you're very flexible. You can lock out the legs, reach the toes. So this is just a progression of the basic crunch. There's a little bit more engagement on the lower abdominals as you control the legs though. So I'm thinking ribs to pelvis again. If you feel your lower back, or if you feel your belt line, your pelvis gently lifting up, that's fine. But what I don't want is your lower back arching. That's really not good. So if you have more bent knees, you can still be reaching up. So the range of motion wouldn't change in terms of the flexion of the core, it would just be a different leg position. Last 2. Last one. From there, we're going to a floor bridge. This time it's a single leg. We're going to hold one leg in the air. Options are hold the leg with your hands or use your own strength. We're going to lift the toes off the ground. You should be able to just about reach your heel. From there, we're lifting up as a unit. Big breath in, drive the heel on the floor until you lift up on the middle upper part of your shoulder blades. If you struggle keeping the leg in the air, you can stabilize it. Personally, I prefer just do this technique. You're not going to do a huge amount of these. They're quite tough to do with good technique. You try to keep your pelvis level to the ground, so avoid your pelvis rotating as you do so. Try to just keep everything nice and level. So you drive through the heel. Last rep. Control down. Again, we're thinking ribs the way up, pelvis the way down. Lift the toes up, hold the leg, drive through the heel. Try to open that hip up actively by using the glutes. If you push through the toes, you won't get too much of your quadriceps. I want to focus on the glutes, so it's much more posterior muscles working. Last 4. Again, ribs on the way up, I'm thinking. Pelvis on the way down. So the spine's completely static. There's no flexing or extending. Okay, pause there. Next one. 2 options. If you found the plank on the feet too hard, stick on the elbows. We're going to go into a plank rotation. So from here, I'm going to go with the couple of reps easy version. So I'll lift up, fingers to temples. The goal is to bring your elbow towards your forearm. Harder version will be feet slapped on top of each other, toes drawn towards shins, flex, rotate and open. As you use your eyes to look at your elbows, that will help you get good rotation. So I'm looking where I'm going, telling my brain exactly what I want the muscles to do and the movement I want to create. So a lot of rotation in the upper spine. Last 3. Okay, change sides. Obviously, if you do this at home, count the reps, try to equal things out, particularly on the sides. You want to be as equally strong on both sides. I'm going to go straight to the feet. If you prefer the knee version, do that. Fingers to temples, flex, look at your hand, look at the elbow. Follow the elbow down your eye line, place it somewhere near your wrist before you open the chest up and rotate round either to the ceiling or slightly backwards to get a bit more rotation. You must listen to your shoulders. The shoulder on the ground is taking quite a lot of load. So if your shoulder doesn't like it, like I said, on your knees instead. Last 3. Okay, and rest. Okay, first part, second part of the warm-up done. So now we're going to go into, we've got 9 exercises. If we have more time, we'll go through and revisit a few of them. So first one, it's a plank. We're going to be in a plank position on our elbows. We're going to do a rotation again, similar to what we've just done, but we're going to be face down, which is prone. I'll do it so you can see this angle. Make sure you're thinking the whole time your ribs and pelvis are nice and tight together, so you don't relax your abdominal wall and arch your back, which is not good for your discs. So from this position, feet shoulder width apart, take a little breath in, reach, come up, look at the hand. The more you can open the rib cage, you want to open that rib cage up by mobilizing the shoulder on the ground and the upper spine. The whole time, I'm maintaining a little hollow position. If in doubt, you want to be slightly hollowed. Hollowed is better than going into extension of the spine. Under this load, that will compress discs. So constantly think, we're just tucking under the ribs of the pelvis, keeping the tension on the anterior of the abdominals. Particularly the lower fibers of your rectus abdominis, your six-pack. Let's do 4 more. Obviously, if you start fatiguing, if you fatigue, you would rest, and you would then come back in to do more reps. Last one. And rest. Okay, next one. We're going to stay face down. We're going to do a Superman. It's going to be dynamic. We're going to lift up. We're going to hold for a second. We're going to lower back down. The ribs, the bottom of the rib cage will stay on the floor throughout. And before you lift your arms and legs up, squeeze your glutes. This is about protecting your back from getting too much stimulation. The Superman Y position. If you don't like this Y position because you've got less flexibility in your shoulder, you can do it in a T shape. So I'll do a couple of each. So we're going to squeeze the glutes. We're going to lift up as if we're doing a skydive. We're going to lower down. If you've got the flexibility in the shoulders, arms higher, squeeze the glutes, lift up, control down. Or you can find a middle position where your arms are a bit wider. Squeeze, lift, control down. Do about 8 more reps. Squeeze the glutes. Slowly lift. Try and get the thighs off the ground as well. If you feel your lower back kicking in, don't lift as high. Less is more in this movement. Squeeze, lift, control. And I do thumbs pointing up. My thumbs pointing to the ceiling. Last one. And control down. Okay. From there, we're going into another crunch pattern. We're going to be rotating, and we're going opposite arm to leg. I want to keep your lower back on the floor throughout, so do not lift any higher than we did in the previous crunches. We're going to stick on one side. Arm can be either crucifix or overhead. This arm, easy option, is to simply keep the foot on the ground. You guys join in. So I'm diagonally crunching. So I'm lifting one shoulder off the ground, but my opposite shoulder is staying on the ground. If you make that a little bit harder, I would lift one leg up and hold it in this position. Ideally, so my thigh is parallel. You will have to adapt the range to suit your flexibility of your hamstrings. Let's do 6 more. Try and synchronize it. You reach the top, the hand and the foot get the top at the same time, and they also touch the ground at the same time. Okay, change sides. So do a couple of the easy ones. So we're going to come up, and now you can see this shoulder stays on the ground. So I'm crunching and slight diagonal, pivoting on the shoulder that's on the ground. Harder version, I'll bring this leg up and I'll stabilize that during the set. Try and reach the top position at the same time and the bottom position at the same time. Make sure your lower back does not arch as the leg lowers to the ground. If you're struggling with that, the other foot should be on the floor, doing the easier version. Let's do 4 more. Last 2. Last rep. And rest. Okay, my abs are definitely kicking in. Hopefully you can feel that as well. Next one, we're going to go into another prone or face down position. It's a bit like the Superman, but we're going to be doing opposite arm and leg. So as I lift one arm up, the opposite leg will lift. We'll then lower that down and we'll switch sides. The whole time, keep your glutes gently engaged. Only lift as high as your lower back is comfortable. Again, if you struggle with this position of the arms, bring the arms into a crucifix rather than an overhead swing position. So I'll start this position, opposite arm and leg, lift. Now this is a little bit more dynamic. We're just going to come down, touch, and back up. Keeping the ribs on the ground, the nose near the floor. Make sure the lower back does not kick in. If I lift too high, I feel my back, so I'm not going to lift quite so high. I'll stay in a range of motion that suits my flexibility and my mechanics. If you want to make it tougher, you wouldn't even relax to the floor. You would just literally go opposite arm and leg. But I think it's a slightly safer version. Let's do a half a dozen. Last 2. Last 1. Okay, from there. Next one, we're going to go into a rotational pattern. We're going to be in a crunch position. The knees will be flexed. There are 2 options. Let me show you both. Again, take the option that's suitable for you. You also must vary the range of motion to suit your flexibility. Shoulders stay on the ground. Keep the thighs, so the lines of a tracksuit, they should be pointing vertically upwards. I rotate to one side. I come across. I will use this arm on this side to push my legs back over. The harder version is a straighter leg. I'm not going to touch the ground right down. I'll just get near the ground. You'll see that on this side. When I feel I run out of range of motion or flexibility, I'll come back over. My lower back is maintained a little hollow, so it's not arching. If your legs start shooting too far away from you, you will arch your back, and it's high risk of injury. So if you struggle to control the lower back, go to the knee version. Or there's a middle ground where you have your thighs vertical, but your knees half straight and half bent. To the version that suits, feel the opposite arm, push the legs back over. So my right arm stabilizes and drives my legs back to the left. 4 more. There's a lot going on in this movement. So a lot of obliques, a lot of rotation, a lot of shoulder stabilization. Last rep. Come back in and rest. Okay, from there, we're going to go back into a back exercise. We're going to go to a YTL. If you've done the last couple of classes, you know what YTL is. It's like the Superman, but we're not going to lift our legs up. We're going to squeeze the glutes. The Y refers to the shape of the arms. It's a Y shape with the thumbs back. We then keep the arms high. They go into a T shape where the palms are face down. The L, I'm not a good example there. I'm a bit tight in the shoulder, but I'm going to try and tuck my elbows into my body, keep it by palms in this position. We then scoot back round, the Y, the T, and the L. Options are to stay up, engaged the whole time, or to rest between reps. I'll do a handful of each. You can choose the version that works for you. Bottom of the rib cage stays on the ground. Squeeze the glutes, Y, T, L. Hang out in each position for a couple of moments. So this is the harder version. We could even play around, do a few of the harder ones, and when you start feeling fatigue a little bit, then you can lower down between reps. And this is more about the shoulder girdle, the stabilizers. So if you need to rest down for a moment, squeeze the glutes and lift back up, you can do that. Try and keep the hands high particular T shape. And also, as you use my watch.
Completed 30 minutes. Heart rate 143 beats per minute.
So if you can hear that, but it says I'm working hard. Okay, let's do another half a dozen. Keep the hands high, feel the shoulder blades moving, and all the muscles between your shoulder blades and spine working. Really good, get a long day sitting at your desk, homeschooling or working. Get those upper back muscles working. Last rep. And rest. Okay. I'm going to give those muscles a bit of rest before we go into an elbow crunch. It's a bit of an old school movement, this. You're going to use the strength in your shoulder girdle by pushing behind you to drive yourself off the ground into a crunch. You'll be hinging at the hips. You're not trying to bend the spine here. What will happen is your spine will just sit bolt upright to about 30 degrees. Movement looks like this. Feet on the ground, elbows tucked in. Take a breath, drive upwards. Control down. Big breath, drive up. The movement is self-limiting. You will only get to a certain range of motion depending on your flexibility of your shoulders and the strength. Big breath, drive, control back down. Rebreathe and drive, control. So it's a good exercise when your abs are getting a little bit weaker because you're using the assistance of your shoulders on the way up, then control yourself on the way down. Let's do 10 reps. So as you tire, lots of power, powerfully up, control back down. Keep the chest open so you don't want to round your shoulders. To some degree, it's very hard to do it wrong on this movement, hence the term self-limiting. It's hard to do it badly. Last 3. Last rep. Okay, and rest. Quite an easy one compared to the others, so if you want to do more reps, you can do so. From there, we are going back into a side plank. This is a much harder version, so I suggest the default position is on the knees, because we're going to be on the elbow, the knees, and then adding a leg raise. When you lift your leg, keep your foot parallel off the ground. Don't let the toes rotate up or rotate down. So, it's a static movement. We're going to simply come up, we're going to hold it. If we want to rest, we'll come back down, just chill out, and we come back in. So I'll do an easy version. Come up, hold the leg. Simple as that. Keep that foot parallel to the ground. If you find this way too easy, then the option will be to go on the other leg. Have both legs out. I'll just do that for a moment because it's quite hard. It'll be this version. Choose which one suits you. Hold that another 10 seconds. 9. Another 5. So we're really trying to feel the side of the glutes working. What's called glute medius. It's a stabilizer of the knee. Stops your knee rolling in as you squat or lunge. Control down. Turn around. Obviously, just see yourself flick over. Go with the same variation. If you're timing this, you do it for about the same time. We're just going roughly here. So shoulders back, chest forward, foot parallel to the ground. You keep the hips up and the pelvis gently push forward. Just try to feel the glutes on the side pushing you off the ground and the glutes on the side keeping this leg in the air. For 10 seconds or so. Nice relaxed breathing. Ideally through the nose, out the mouth, through the abdominal wall moving with your breath. As your core works on pressure, abdominal breathing or diaphragmatic breathing is how to get your core to function better. Okay, from there, we're going to go back to another crunch pattern. We are going to go into a sprinter crunch. You're going to be using opposite arm to leg, but it's going to be elbow to knee. We're going to stay engaged with the knees up, and we're going to alternate between the sides. You're going to think about your hollow throughout. So from this position, I'm going to go into This position, elbow knee, then elbow knee. Don't push the leg too far. If this leg goes too far away, your back will arch. Don't want that. Then alternate. The rib cage, the bottom ribs on the ground. You can go slower to help you control the movement. There's a bit of rotation occurring in the upper spine, so I'm rotating the one shoulder off the ground, then the other shoulder. You can also go a little bit quicker, but try and work on coordination. If you go too quick, you might lose the position. If you do make it harder, a little bit more leg reach, but you're holding the hollow throughout. Another 10 seconds. Or reps anyway. 6, 5, 4, and rest. Okay. Cool, doing well on time. Okay, we're going to take, we've just done 9 different exercises. We're going to repeat 3 of them. Because obviously, as we've done these last few workouts, they've been getting progressively harder each week. We've been putting more complex patterns in, so ideally still build off. Today is much more rotation involved. So we're going to go into 2 rotational movements and 1 upper back stability. First one, plank with the rotation. So make sure you hold your hollow, nice tight abs, rotate round, try and release the shoulder on the ground. What that means is I'm thinking rib cage rotates round and reach behind me gently. Slower, it's going to help you control what's happening. If you've got tight shoulders, going slow is definitely going to help you be aware of opening the shoulder and reaching. So you're putting legs in the muscles. The feet will move a little bit, but I'm trying to keep my feet relatively still. What I'm not doing is shuffling my feet from side to side, keeping my toes pointing down. With just a subtle movement at the ankle. Last 6. Last 2. Last rep. From there, we're going to go back into YTLs. So again, it's our Y, it's our T, it's our L. Choose whichever version you want, whether you hold the position and do a handful of reps, or you lie down out of position and rest between reps. It's up to you. So squeeze the glutes, Y position, T, and L. Slower on this movement. It's actually a little bit harder. There's no rush to go through the reps. We're trying to get good range of motion, a nice reach with the hands high. Keep the hands high from the ground, the palms down. Where you tuck the elbows in so the shoulder blades come together as you do so. Nice deep breaths through the nose. Try and feel your abdominal wall moving against the floor as you breathe in, and your glutes remain engaged throughout. If you struggle with that, rest for a few reps, for 5-10 seconds, and come back in. Let's do a 5. Last couple. Keep the height. Don't start fatiguing. Fight for your position. And rest. Then we're back into wipers. So again, arms are in crucifix. You're going to be rotating left or right, keeping a small hollow throughout. Choose which version suits your flexibility, either long lever or short. Take a little breath, control. With the hand, the leg's going to drive to push yourself back up. My right hand will push down to drive me back to my left. Again, slower. As you get near the floor, it'll be harder. Control that position, smoothly back up. Also, if you've got your legs a long way up, try and draw your toes towards your shins. So you put a bit of stretch in the posterior chain, which is your calves, hamstrings. Let's do 6 more. Keep my tempo. 5, 4, 3, 2, last rep, and control down, and rest. Okay, perfect. We have time to finish off a little bit of flexibility. We're going to work through a couple of main stretches. We're going to work through abdominals. We're going to work through a pigeon pose for glutes. We're going to add a couple of variations to it to target different muscles. I'll also show a few different ways of doing it to work with your own flexibility. So, first one, abdominals. You are going to simply go into what's called a Mackenzie press or a yoga pose. It looks like this. Have your hands wider if you're less flexible. You're going to simply lift up. Some of you might stop in that position. Some of you get this position. You are trying to keep your upper thigh on the ground. Your belt line will just lift up a little bit. And it's a slow breath in through the nose, into the abdominals. And as you exhale, just try and feel your hips drop down a bit lower. And just relax everything. Legs are relaxed, glutes are relaxed. If you feel your lower back, reduce your height a bit, go down a bit lower, or squeeze your glutes. But just try and relax and breathe into this. It's a really good exercise if anyone has a disc bulge, which is very common as we get older. It will help relocate the disc centrally within between vertebral bodies, because we're compressing we are narrowing the posterior aspect between 2 vertebrae, trying to push the nucleus, the disc back into the more anterior position. Nice slow breaths. Some of you, for your abdominals, your arms should be locked out the elbow, so your elbows should be fine. You'll be a little bit hunched in the shoulders, but that's okay. And we're going to lower down out of that. Then we're going to go into a pigeon pose with a couple of small tweaks to it. Let's focus on the pigeon pose to start with. I'm going to do it facing you. So what you should be setting up is this knee is on the ground, the foot is outside the line of my other leg. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide my leg backwards until I feel the first stretch. Now for me, the first stretch comes about here. I'm not on the ground yet. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to try and move in that position. So I'm going to gently push my bottom back towards the corner of the room and then push up a little bit. You can also roll across the shin. So I roll the shin, I push back in the stretch. Roll the shin, push back. Just so you can see more clearly, this foot should be this position, the thigh inside that heel. And when you can get your glutes into the ground, then you're going to hang out down there. So we can now go into this position. We're thinking about dropping down. So I'm always pushing my bottom backwards and outwards. I've got a pair of jeans on, I'm pushing the pressure towards the back pocket. On the side, I'm stretching, simultaneously bringing the spine down. Now the variations, what we're going to do, when we get low enough, some of you there already, that's fine. You're going to take the opposite side to what you're stretching. So I'm stretching my right glute, therefore my left hand will gently reach and gently come across. Do not go too far. Keep a long arm. As you breathe, drop down. When you want to take a breath in, let your body lift up so you can breathe into the abdomen. But on exhalation, exploit that release and go a little bit deeper, a little bit more length, but do not strain from your shoulder. Just try and drop the shoulder here to the ground and the torso towards the thigh. I breathe, I create space by lifting, I drop by releasing constantly. You can just vary the position, get a bit more of my glute by pushing my bottom backwards and outwards, get my chest a bit lower, my head a bit lower, a bit more reach, but thumb is up. And you would stop when you feel you have no more range to achieve. If you can keep relaxing and getting further and further, you'd carry this on. You feel there's nothing left to gain from it, then you'll come out. And if you didn't get very far, then doing this on a regular basis, you would get a bit more range of motion. We're going to switch sides again so you can see the knees on the ground, the foot's outside, the back leg is inside the line of my ankle. I shoot that back leg out, try and keep my pelvis looking down. First goal, try and get the glutes on the upper side of the ground. You do that dynamically, I can roll across the shin. This time pushing my left buttock backwards and outwards. When you've got that end position, think about keeping the pelvis square to the ground. Now I'm stretching my left glute, so I bring my right hand in. So this is called a diagonal sling pattern. So breath in as I relax, drop the rib cage, drop the head, create space to breathe, and lift up. As I exhale, drop. Creep the hand forward a little bit if you can, but do not overstretch. There's a lot of tension through the body, all crossing the spine and diagonal pattern, so you don't want to overly stretch here. Your body will not thank you. Ultimately, if you can't breathe in a relaxed manner, it's too much for you. Last couple of breaths. And you hang out in your end position for a few moments, just to accommodate that range of motion. Convince your nervous system you're happy to be here. If you're not, your body will just tighten straight back up. So breathing is all important. Just slowly come out, use the hands, push yourself up. And ladies and gents, or ladies in this case, gents if you're watching later on, we have finished.